Good morning, everybody. How are we all doing today? So, I can't tell, are we happy about the snow? Or, all right then. So, for everyone that said yes, let's stand up together. Just kidding. This is everybody stand up. Even if you don't like the snow, stand up with us. I was getting ready to come today, and just in case you're curious, I'm not one of those people who's super into this whole snow idea. Think we could rethink that better. And I was like, when was the last time, when was the last moment where I was able to just be still, say, God, look at all this stuff around me, and look at all this stuff that you've done through me, and look at where I am, and just be able to, bask maybe is the right word, just be there in that, and just be grateful, and be thankful for it. You know, I've come a long way to be where I'm at today, and sometimes life hurries us to where we don't notice that. And so today when we sing and when we're doing this together, maybe we could take a moment in our worship, when we're singing and lifting our hands, when we're doing all that, to recognize that God, you've done this, and now I'm here. And you've brought me through so many things and given me so many things, and I'm so grateful. And we could just take a posture of naming that today. And so in your own way, in your own words, where you're at in the room, when we're singing, you can join me in sharing this gratitude about where we are and what God's done. Can anyone help me do that today? All right. Before we do that, we're getting ready to start. Why don't you go find someone, tell them good morning, tell them it's okay that it snowed. It's not a big deal.
Still to come, oh I believe.
grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. Oh, I'm alive. This is my testimony. From death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony.
These are the days that we prayed for. A stirring of faith has begun. And I've seen so much, still I'm certain that the best is not yet come. Jesus, you're not done with me. You're doing a new thing. You're doing a new thing.
I see you waiting for revival, preceded by justice storms rage, I see your face, and I will hold on to you, and I will hold on to you. So you call me out, you call me out on the ways to walk by faith, even when I start to see you're here with me. Storms rage, I see your face, and I will hold on to you, and I will hold on to you. So when the ocean come crashing down on me, still I will trust you, still I will trust you. So when the ocean come crashing down on me, still I will trust you, still I will trust you. Call me out on the ways to walk by faith, even when I start to sink, you are here with me. When waters rise, storms rage, I see your face, and I will hold on to you, and I will hold on to you. So let the ocean come crashing down on me, still I will trust you, still I will trust you. So let the ocean come crashing down on me, still I will trust you, still I will trust you.
Let the king of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink You're never gonna let me down. You are good. You're good. You are good. You're good. You are good. You're good. You are good. You're good.
Psalm 121 says this. It says, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip, and he who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither sleep nor slumber. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. So the Lord will keep you from all harm, and he will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and your going, both now and forevermore. So God, we try to take our scattered sense of who we are, of our future, of our hurts, of our hopes, our purpose, our anger, our confusion, our relational struggle. We, God, as followers of Jesus today, try to tuck our lives up in under the shade, the protection of your hand. We may not feel it, we may not see it, we may not have any vantage, we may even doubt it this morning. But with some sort of expectation of gratitude, God, we just say thank you that you are the shade at our right hand. God, thank you that you've been with us and you'll continue to be with us. God, thank you that you never sleep, and that we can lay down and rest each night knowing that you don't slumber or sleep. You watch over us in our coming and our going now and forevermore. I pray those words get in us and they form us. They change the way we think, change the way we feel, that they change even the way that we walk in today, full of hope or full of looking for hope. Thank you for being our protector. In Jesus' name, and everybody said, amen, amen, amen. Hey, we've never had the chance to meet, my name is Matt. I get the privilege to serve as lead pastor around here, and we are attempting to become more and more a family together that center our lives on the reality of Jesus. Not just his teachings, but the personhood. And so part of that is that we become a family, we become community. And so why don't you take a minute right now and say hello to some folks around you, and we'll continue into today's service. Is it just me, or did anyone else wake up surprised by snow? Yeah, I went outside to warm up the car for the girls to get in, and I was like, oh, we'll see how our new van does, new to us van does in this. But good morning again. Hey, before Katie comes up and tells a little bit more about how to be connected with what's happening and some updates, I want to just continue to talk to us for a moment around our generosity as a church family for a moment. I want to come at it this way this morning. Every day I get the privilege of taking all three of our girls to school. And I get to make it to 3 classrooms. And depending on the timing of when we get here, some of the classrooms for Sydney, our 5-year-old and our 3-year-old, they might be combined into a single space. Now, for those of you who are parents, have been parents, have just ever seen a child in a room full of toys, you know that it doesn't take too long for that room to become utter chaos. You may also know, whether it's a young one or a teenager, that sometimes the gap between the expectation of cleanliness and reality seems like a big one. Have you ever had a fight with a kid to try to get a playroom cleaned up, their bedroom to be? A little bit, yeah. And every morning, it happened this Wednesday. Every now and then, sorry, not every morning, but I get to witness something that just blows my mind. Now, to get my children to clean up their playroom all by themselves is like an act of the Lord. But these teachers around here, they have this magic. They go to YouTube and they play this thing called the cleanup song. Anybody familiar with the cleanup song? Any of you leverage the cleanup song at home? And all of a sudden, I see 20 chaotic 4 and 5-year-olds spring into action and clean an entire room together in ways that mystify and profoundly challenge my conception of who a 4-year-old can actually be. And it makes me feel like a failure as a parent. How do they rally 20 children to turn chaos into order? It's amazing to see. And here's the idea, like, okay, what's the tie-in here? When it comes to who we are as a church, whether it's serving, whether it's giving, whether it's loving one another, whether it is just giving an encouraging word, giving a handshake, a smile, none of us can do everything, but each of us can do something. For my daughter to go clean that room by herself, it would never happen. But when she and her friends get together and they put on this magical song, something profound happens. And I got to witness this week. I got to witness it together in who you are and who we're becoming as a family. We lost a gentle giant this week. Bill Light went home to be with Jesus this week. And you may have seen my post, and I'll have more to say on that, and we'll honor him sooner than later. But something cool happened this week that's bigger than any of us. On the same day, his sister, Rob's wife, Lydia's mom, fell and broke her shoulder. And in a very fast period, the loss of a brother and a broken shoulder. And we got word of it, and we're like, what can we do? There's not much to do. And a meal train went out. And within just a few hours, you all showed up. And they have dinner every other night for the next few weeks. Whether it's giving, whether it's that, whatever it is about participation together, none of us can do everything. But we can all do something. None of us can do everything, but we can all do something. And the need is great to close the gap between what is happening beyond these walls when we gather, to reach them and love them with our whole lives and with our church. But none of us can do everything, and that can be overwhelming. But all of us can do something. And so I want to challenge us in that when it comes to every part of who we are becoming as a church family. I also want to express gratitude and thank you for how you stepped up in this moment through the meal train. And I just say more. I just say more of it. Just say more of it. Amen? Amen. Welcome, Katie, to tell us about another way that none of us could do this all on our own, but we can all do this thing together.
Sorry, I switched sides
Sorry.
on you.
That was like from the left.
Surprise. Good morning. I am Katie, the Connections Director here at the church, and we're so glad that you're here with us today, and probably a lot of you online because it is very cold outside, and so it was very hard for some of you to get here this morning, or maybe not get here. So we welcome you online as well, and I'm going to switch it up and start with ways to connect with us here at Bridge Church. So if you haven't done so already, we would love for you to download our app and stay connected with us that way. You can find the events tab on our app and be able to see what's coming up and all of that to stay connected, and to also fill out a Connect card if you haven't done so already. We would love to stay connected with you and build our community through that. So those are some ways to connect with us, and also to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media so we give other updates on there as well. So Sorry, I'm a lot out of breath because I had to run around, get my phone, make sure I had the scripture for today. So a couple of things to look forward to coming up here at church. One, next Sunday, we are going to be switching things up with our toddler and pre-K rooms, and both of those classrooms are going to start being downstairs now. So we will have extra people out and everything to help direct and all of that, but starting next week, we're going to have pre-K and toddler rooms down here down the hallway. So that's a little something different that's coming up. And then we also have our amazing, wonderful, best night of the year, Night to Shine, is coming up. And if you haven't been a part of this amazing event before, last year was my first time, and it truly is life-changing, amazing, so much fun. I'm saying all these words a lot, but it really is all of those things. It is the coolest thing to see and to be a part of. So if you haven't done so already, we would love for you to be a volunteer for that event. We need more buddies. We need just all the things. So please be a part of that event with us. We would love to have you here. And it's on Friday, February 9th, so it's coming up real soon. So I think that's all we have, and we are going to read our scripture. So can you stand with me today as we read? All right, we're reading from Mark 4:35 through 41. That day, when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along, just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we all drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Be still, quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even with the wind and the waves obey him."
All right, you can be seated this morning. Thank you, Katie. So I got a question and a story. Question. Have you ever not been okay? You ever not been okay? Story. Now, this is a high trust exchange I'm about to share with you this story. And if this is your first time, pretty quickly you're going to figure out what type of story it is. And I want you to know this is a rare occasion. And maybe we have relational work to do, but I'm trusting you. It's a vulnerable moment. You ready? You ever not been okay? Reaffirm, yeah, awesome. Me too. The year, 2003. The place, Mason, Ohio, on a golf course across the street from Kings Island. The activity, golfing. The company, my dad. Some of you immediately know where I'm going. Pun intended. And a few others. Everything was going fine until it wasn't. On an unfamiliar course and on a hole as far as from the clubhouse as you could possibly be, everything changed from a great time golfing with friends to a crisis. And it happened very fast. You see, something about the hot dog at the turn didn't quite sit right. And quickly I knew that this needs dealt with pronto. And so the first step was to admit, is he about to tell that kind of story? I really am, I'm telling you. So the first step was to admit that I was not okay. And I did that, not with words, but with action as I hopped into the golf cart, deserting the group, stealing Dad's clubs, and racing off frantically searching for a bathroom. As I drove away, I quickly realized just how limited my time was. And the problem was that the gap between my current present location and a suitable bathroom exceeded the needs of my body. And there came a moment of decision I know some of you have had to make before. The decision was this: I can risk it all, hoping I make it back to the clubhouse, or I'm going to get creative. And that's when it appeared. A rare area of vegetation. A suitable oasis in my moment of crisis, as I thought. And I paused my story to ask you, when you're not okay, does your judgment ever get impaired? Here's what happened next. This piece of vegetation I told you about, the closer I got, the smaller it got. It's really just a small patch of bushes, more than a shrub, but not taller than me, room to get inside, but not be fully covered. And I quickly and inaccurately judged it to be enough. Mistake number one. Mistake number two had to do with its location. You see, for me to get into these bushes, I had to park my cart right beside the tee box of a hole. For any of you non-golfers, that's right where everyone is for sure going to be at some point. When I got into these bushes, I could see the foursome on the green before me, and I thought, this may be a matter of timing, but God, do your thing. He did not. And by the time I was past the point of no return, here came a cart, two carts, in fact, four men, innocent, unexpected golfers who were just trying to enjoy a day of golf. Yes, as I was in my non-oasis of relief, I could hear their questions about the random golf cart beside the tee box. Yes, I could see them without them seeing me at that point, so I sat there waiting just to be spotted. Yes, I had to get prepared for the walk of shame that could potentially happen. Yes, do all of that. But it's not the worst part. The worst part is that in my time of limited judgment and tunnel vision, I failed to recognize that on the other side of the bushes, bordering the entire hole ahead of me, the entire hole behind me, were condos. Not just one or two, hundreds. Not just one story, multi-story. Not with windows, but decks and patios. Were there decks on the people on those decks and patios, you ask? Why, of course there were. Just one or two? No. Many enjoying the beautiful weather, watching the golfers on a spot that they probably paid premium money to watch the golf course. Yes, when I emerged from the bushes, which is a very over-exaggerated word for what that vegetation actually was. Was there laughter? Absolutely. Were there some cheers? There were. And even though it is a great story now, I think it is. It's one of my finest moments in life. And it took us 4+ years to get to that story. In that moment, I was not okay. Not okay. Have you ever not been okay? Now you're like, if I say yes, am I saying I have one of those stories too? Spectrum. There is coming a day, here's my point. There's coming a day, perhaps in the future, maybe you're in the middle of it right now, but there's a coming day when you are not going to be okay. And the question is, how will you navigate those moments? In our text, the disciples were not okay. And the two things that were set in contrast were this idea of fear and this idea of faith. We began kind of a short series last week called Beyond Boundaries, the journey from fear to love. And as I said last week, fear impacts every part of our life. And today I simply want to do one thing. I want to work through this story to help you redefine the relationship that you might have right now with fear. And in my humble opinion, not just as a follower of Jesus, but if just in life, a mark of growing maturity in life, a fully aware leader or husband or wife or person at work, a friend, and even a follower of Jesus, is your ability to tell yourself the truth. It's to be honest with yourself with what's happening. And I think that's why Jesus asks his disciples what sounds like a really absurd question in verse 40. I don't know if you caught it. They're in the middle of the storm, and Jesus asks them, "Why are you so afraid?" In a tiny boat, in a storm, with Jesus asleep, why are you afraid? Now, I love a good question. Love a good question. But this question, at first, it seems a bit out of place, a bit out of touch, right? Why are you afraid? They're literally about to drown. Why are you afraid? It seems not very loving, not very caring, not very present. Unless Jesus is doing something bigger. Unless Jesus is actually freeing his friends from something deep inside of them that is kind of like a strange enslavement that they're not always aware of. Unless the question is about Jesus taking his disciples on a journey to help them redefine their relationship with fear. And fear is not itself always the problem. In fact, Your brain is spectacularly designed and wired to detect fear. Fear is not always the problem. The problem is that in an effort to overcome fear, we often fight it with the wrong weapons, or we deny it. But we don't overcome fear by fighting it. That was a central point last week. If you're going to embrace life with Jesus or just life with honesty, you are going to have to navigate your way through fear, not around it. And if you are going to take the journey that Jesus is inviting us into today to redefine your relationship with fear, it's going to take you through a couple of thresholds. I see two in this story. One is an invitation, and the other is a confrontation. The first threshold is an invitation. Verse 35. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go to the other side." Everybody say, other side. Everybody say, snow day. Everybody say, you better get your groceries. The phrase, that day when evening came, the phrase that day tells us that something significant had happened that day. And it would have been something like this. Imagine yourself as one of Jesus' disciples are in the crowd living in Roman-occupied territory. You would have spent that day on the shore listening to some of the most countercultural teaching you've ever heard from a Jewish rabbi, a carpenter named Jesus, and he's talking about something no one's ever talked about, the kingdom of God, the rule and reign of God in the world. That day, you would have seen Jesus climb into a boat, maybe yours, and teach the large crowd from the water, using the water for amplification. You would have heard the excitement in the crowd from some, and the cynics, and the jeers, and the questioning from others, as they all eagerly responded to this curious character named Jesus, who's teaching about God's peace and justice, but he's talking about it in a different way, saying, "I am your peace and your justice." And you might even have like this sense of pride welling up to be like, you know what? I'm with that guy. I'm with this guy. I think I'm with this guy. And then Jesus does something unexpected. He separates the followers from the crowd with an invitation, and he says, "Let's go to the other side." And it's an uncomfortable invitation. And this is something I never really thought about, because this is a very familiar story. Many of you, grown up in church, you've heard this 1,000 times. You've probably heard at least 10 messages on this story itself. But I found something in this that I personally had never sat with. And it was this, is that to invite a bunch of Jewish insiders to go to the other side was to leave the domain of their people and their history to literally go into the land of the outsiders, the Gentiles, to those people. It was a place divided by race and ethnicity and social status. But Jesus is going, and you find him really, really, really beautiful and at least intriguing. And he's invited you to go with him. But to go means crossing the divide of sorts to liberate a community, to liberate yourself, and to liberate yourself from the fear that has been segregating and separating these two communities for a long time. But that's not it. So there's an invitation to take insiders to the outsiders in order to set everyone free. And there's another invitation. You don't know this yet, but if you were to continue reading Mark's gospel, you would know this, that on the other side is a danger that you had no idea you were going to encounter. Because awaiting you on the other side was a spiritual conflict. It's a man who's been possessed by demonic forces and isolated for several years, who is in desperate need of freedom and liberation himself. That's not the only thing. The third thing that you're being invited to is that to get to the other side, you're going to have to experience rough waters. A storm that will threaten to drown you, to sink you, to overwhelm you, and to cause you to question everything about your decision to go with Jesus. And there's something in this invitation that is so powerful. And it's this, that Jesus' invitation to cross over was not just about a means of transportation to go to another ministry region. It was about an invitation to deep, heartfelt, soul-level liberation and freedom for you and for others. Jesus is heading there to begin this mysterious work of bringing Jew and Gentile together, insider and outsider together. And he's going to use the insiders to profoundly change them and heal them and change their perspective of them in that process. He's also inviting them to confront some darkness and some spiritual throwback at them. And he's also inviting them to say, if you're going to get to these purposes and healing and freedom in your life, it might kill you. It's definitely going to scare you. But I'm with you. And some things are about to happen. Isn't it interesting how God tends to break our preconceived ideas that often hold us back in fear to show us that beyond fear and through fear, motivated by love, is actually the very freedom and purpose that you've been looking for the whole time. But not just yours. They weren't going from a Jewish area to a Jewish area. They were going from ultimate insiders to ultimate outsiders. And what was in the middle? Storms, an immediate meeting of spiritual conflict, near-death experiences, and the most insane amount of fear you could probably ever experience. Jesus was inviting them into the same thing that he's inviting us to since Christmas Eve, I think, is to make a shift from fear to some form of ruthless trust. And for the disciples on the boat, that was going to require something different from them. In verse 36, it says that they left the crowd and took Jesus in the boat. They left the crowd. Now, what does that mean beyond the obvious? In Mark's gospel, the crowd is often used in kind of a negative way. It's Mark's way of calling them the fans, but not the followers. It's my relationship that I currently have with ice baths. I'm a fan. I can talk with you a little bit of the understanding and the benefits. I can point you to some solid research and podcasts. I love hearing other people's stories. But is it a part of my life, my routine, my habits? Not a chance. Not yet, at least. And I've done it once, and I loved it, and I'll continue to tell you how nice it was that one time way back when. But I'm a fanboy, not a regular of the old ice bath. When Mark talks about the crowd, he's kind of getting at them. He's talking about the people that have been following Jesus around, saying, Jesus is kind of a great addition to our lives, but he's not yet the center. He's not setting the trajectory of who we become. And remember, this whole several weeks of teaching and conversation is around this pastoral ache that I have for us and for your family and for our community, it's this. Don't let fear define who you become. Let love, let something deeper. For the crowd, Jesus didn't set the trajectory. And that matters a lot. Because you and I, same as them back then, we all aim the attention of our minds and the affection of our heart to somewhere or someone that we think will make us happy and give us peace and meaning and purpose. And it's real whether we are being really intentional about it or not. And whatever you aim the trajectory of your life towards will determine who you'll become, for better or for worse. And so Jesus is saying, in his invitation to cross over amongst all that, he's saying, like, ultimately, fear or trust can define the direction of your life. Who are you aiming your life at becoming like? And will you do it for the sake of those on the outside? It's a beautiful picture of spiritual formation all in one story. We become more like Jesus for the sake of others. Not for ourselves, not to grow nice churches around that, not to be good, not to be right, not to be the best, not to be morally superior. We become more like Jesus. And as we become more like Jesus, we do it for the sake of outsiders. For them to cross over was to navigate and redefine their relationship with fear. And they had to make the decision. Am I in love with Jesus setting the trajectory of my life, or is he an add-on? Once that question is answered, is that enough motivation to stick with it when the storms come, the spiritual conflict comes, then I get over there and I'm faced with all those other people? Now that is a beautiful moment in the message. We can do a whole church for the next 50 years in what I just said in the last 30 years. You know why? Because I think that's what Jesus has been after the whole time. can we become like Jesus for the sake of others? That's it. That's the journey. Part of that journey, you got to redefine your relationship with fear. But notice this. They didn't just say, I trust you in the way that I'm like, I trust the benefits of the ice bath, but I'm never going to get in it. They're like, I trust you so much, I'm going to go get on that boat. And I have no idea if they could see the storm clouds there or if it just popped up. I know it says like all of a sudden. I don't know what all of a sudden was if I were there, but I'm going to imagine, unless God did it like Noah's Ark style, there may have been some weather a-brewing. And you're like, is this? They're fishermen. They live on the water, man. Like, they could probably sense something was coming, and they went anyways. So the first threshold is an invitation, and the second threshold is a confrontation. And here's what I'm getting at. In order for you to redefine your relationship, and in order for Bridge Church to redefine our relationship with fear and love for the sake of others, our view of God has to be confronted a lot. And I have to admit that the path towards growth and maturity is learning that I am way more limited. That the power, the wisdom, the strength of this journey with Jesus, I participate in it, but it is far bigger than me. Oftentimes, God uses the rough waters of our lives to confront our view of who God is. And our view of God always leaks out in the moments of rough waters. It's already there, right? Picture it. You're on that boat. Let's go back to the boat scene for a minute. The storm is raging. The waves are cresting over the boat. And the boat is being pushed to the edge of its abilities. And Jesus is doing what? He's sleeping. Does that sound like a God who cares? Not really. So the disciples have this really human moment, really vulnerable, anxious moment, and they ask him, Jesus, don't you care if we drown? Don't you care? Have you ever asked God that? You ever had that moment of like, yeah, I'm not okay. God, where's the bathroom? Don't you care? I didn't bring a change of clothes, and I'm 3 hours from home. In your life, have you ever gotten to the point where you're like, Jesus, don't you care? Let me leave you in that spot for a second and ask you a good question. Love good questions. What if the reason Jesus was asleep on the boat wasn't because he didn't care, but because he knew that with him they had nothing to fear? Think about that in your scenario. It's not wrong to ask Jesus, don't you care? It's an okay thing. I'm not invalidating that experience. But what if what you are thinking, this is the confrontation, what if what you are thinking is a lack of care from Jesus is actually a sign that you have nothing to fear because of Jesus? And that limited view needs confronted, and I think we find it right here. Why does that matter? Because what kind of life could we live if we're not walking around saying, Jesus, don't you care? Jesus, don't you care? Jesus, don't you care? But we realize that what feels like absence is not his absence. It's a reflection of our view. And if we can cultivate relationships with others who've been in the stormy waters before, and we can become more like Jesus to the degree that somehow there's a confidence that comes out of us that's not based in our fear, but a growing view of who Jesus is, who he actually has the power over these storms, so he is with you and there's nothing to fear in the midst of it. So Jesus confronts their sense of how he cares for them, and then he confronts their illusion for control. Verse 40, he says, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? Essentially, don't you trust me? So he asks them two questions. Why are you afraid, and where's your trust? I was sitting with a mentor a couple of years ago, and just hashing it out, telling him about some concerns, some worries, some ideas. You're just talking to a trusted person. And, I got done kind of rattling off my angry, worrisome tirade of life and the future. And he looked at me, And it's one of the most profoundly loving moments I've ever experienced where I knew God was using this person like very directly in that moment to say to me something. And he said this. He said, Matt, in your imagined future, God is rarely there. In the way you're talking to me about your worries and your concerns and your future, I just want you to know, God is rarely there. And I sat with that, and that blew up my world for a minute. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm a lifelong Christian. I know the promises. I can recite the stories. I know Psalm 121 like the back of my hand that I read to you this morning. But he was right. I came to a realization that when I think about my future and God doesn't seem to have a strong spot in there, the way I think about it and worry about it and talk about it, then there must be something else that's shaping who I'm becoming and my narrative I'm telling myself about the future that I have, that I'm thinking about. And for me, that was fear a lot of the time. And maybe you're someone who struggles in a similar way. And it's not the acute fear. It's not that you're on a boat and it's about to capsize. That's fear. That's a good response. You're hardwired to be like, this is dangerous. Let's get out of here. It's not that. It's the chronic fear. It's like the low-grade fever of fear that is always sitting beneath the surface. You may be in the storm. You may be in harbor. You may be building the boat. Whatever it is, there's chronic fear underneath the surface. And I want you to notice what Jesus said to them in this moment. They come expressing their humanity. Jesus, don't you care? And he doesn't do what our text said last week where you commanded, don't be afraid. That's not what he did. He said, why are you so afraid? He didn't say, don't be afraid. He said, why are you so afraid? He wanted to go deeper. He wanted them to redefine, to discover what is driving them underneath. I want you to take a picture of this next slide. Or write it down. This is a little inventory that you can ask yourself to get at that question. If you're struggling with fear, or you just want to take some time to sit with this, there are 3 questions that I think are inroads to this question of why am I so afraid? Why is fear such a powerful force in my life? And these are the 3 questions that can be like a little inventory exercise for you. Number 1, what am I afraid of losing? Person, possession, idea. What am I afraid of losing? Number 2, what am I trying to hide? Number 3, what am I trying to prove? Why am I so afraid? Well, what am I trying to prove? What am I afraid of losing? And what am I trying to hide? So Jesus asked that, why are you so afraid? And then he follows it up and he says, do you still have no faith? Why do you not trust me? And listen, again, it's not that the disciples on the boat shouldn't have been afraid in the danger of the imminent threat of the storm. It's that they had misplaced their trust. Jesus had told them they were going to cross over to the other side, and when it appears that they're not going to make it, and they were able to be honest with themselves and with God, who and what they were really trusting got revealed. And when Jesus invited them to cross over, and he invites us to cross over from casual faith to what Brennan Manning calls ruthless trust. And this is really interesting. Ruthless trust. Now, the reason he uses the word ruthless is because essentially that word means that without self-pity. Without self-pity. Without self-pity, trust. Now, I am not about to do a moment of victim shaming or not acknowledging the fact that real things happen to real people that are really unjust, and there are real victims out there, including in the room. But there's a difference between that and adopting a victim mentality in every aspect of your life, right? We can agree there is a spectrum in that journey. Ruthless trust to God is a level of trusting God without self-pity that doesn't get mad and victimize ourselves for every storm that's part of our life and every mishap and uncontrolled step. It's a way to say, I trust you without self-pity. And I can easily fall into a victim mentality. But in all of that, in the complexity of life, you can choose that, or you can choose some sort of victimless trust in God. And if you'll be honest in that, you can redefine the relationship. So there's an invitation, and then there's a there's a threshold of confrontation or control in our view of God's care. And lastly, I want to end with this. These questions. Why are you so afraid? Who do you trust? How do you redefine your relationship with fear in light of all of this? I think there are three ways that God shows us in our story. The first is in verse 36. And it's an often overlooked part of the story because I already skipped over it. You may not have seen it. It says in verse 36, leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. And then here's the phrase. There were also other boats with him. I've always had a mental image of like, here's Jesus and the guys in one boat, stormy rage in the middle of nowhere. There were also other boats with him. How do you begin to redefine your relationship with fear? Number one, look around and gain some support from the other boats. Any of you not been okay before? Most of you raise your hand. Here's the follow-up. How many of you have made some progress of being more okay because of a trust and a relationship with God over the course of your life? Those are the boats to look for. You can gain support from other boats. It's often overlooked. When you look around in this room, wondering if you're the only one struggling and questioning and drowning, take heart because there's other boats in this storm too. And one of the great gifts that we have of being a church, being the church together, is that we get to travel life together. In the room are other boats. Boats with stories and gifts and experiences and something to offer. Boats that are stronger together than alone. Boats who have something to offer, and other boats who need to receive. The problem is that in our fears, sometimes we isolate ourselves. So what's the answer? Is to become a community full of safe, loving, empathetic belonging one to another. And Jesus leaves Capernaum. It's okay. You may not have heard in the back of, anyways, a watch reminded us. What's the gift that we can offer each other? It's our story. It's belonging. It's ruthless trust to God that becomes shared. Number two, here's the thing, how to redefine your relationship with fear is answer the questions Jesus asks. Why are you so afraid? Get into that. Where's your trust? Get into that. Find a boat that can help you answer that question. Find a mentor, a spiritual director, a pastor, a therapist. Answer the questions. Why are you so afraid? Where's your trust? What are you afraid of losing, hiding, proving? And then third and lastly, how do you redefine your relationship with fear? Is refocus your attention. Refocus your attention. In verse 41, it says, they were terrified. They're scared. They're about to die. Jesus, don't you care? And then Jesus calms the storm, and then did they get more relieved or more scared? The story says they go from scared to terrified. Well, that doesn't seem to make sense. Something happened. Jesus calmed the storm, and then they were more afraid. Here's what happened. They refocused their fear into someone greater than all of their fears, and they were awestruck at what they just saw. Not afraid of, but something deep in them said, whoa. There is an emotional response of fear that's happening right now. We cried out to this guy and said, don't you care? And then with his words and the strength of who he is, he calmed the storm, and they were more afraid. And what they just learned there, I don't know, when you had that moment, if you've had that moment where you realize Jesus who he is who he says he is, where he comes through in a way, or he pieces some things together, or he works in a moment of power, or some things come to clarity in a way you're like, oh my gosh, this guy isn't just like an ice bath that I think is a good idea that maybe every now and then I'll take the plunge. He's the one that's worth like spending time with every day. He's the one worth setting the trajectory of my life. He's the one that really has done the things that I grew up on and I responded to in a salvation moment, and then I've learned some scriptures. He actually is that guy. Refocus your attention on the fear of what you're afraid of to the one who holds the power over all your fears. When was the last time you had a moment like that? And could today be an invitation into that? I'm going to end with just a quick story about Bill. Sorry, guys. I'm not sorry. I was sitting with Bill a couple weeks ago. He's about to have surgery. We talked about Bill earlier passing away. And Bill was living on some sort of time that only God decided he could have. By all physical ways, he should have been with Jesus years ago. And he'd been close a couple times. He's about to have surgery to remove a gallbladder that was just wreaking havoc on everything a couple weeks ago. I was sitting with him in the hospital a couple hours before surgery. I was like, Bill, you have such a quiet strength. Where does that come from? I just wanted to learn from this wise follower of Jesus for so many years, this sage. I mean, I use those words sparingly, but just a quiet, gentle sage of a giant of a human being. And man of little words, just perked up, smiling, full of life on his face. He's like, Matt, just learn to trust God. I mean, that was his answer. Just learn to trust God. And what is there to fear anyways? I'm either going home on God's timing or I'm going to be with him today. And I was like, man, a person who's facing end-of-life stuff has been suffering physically for a couple years, was at the end of his life filled with non-anxious peace. Not bitterness or anger or regret, just a calm presence. And the only answer I have for where that comes from is what Bill says out of his own mouth. Decades of not being part of the crowd, but following Jesus cumulatively changes the trajectory of your life, condition of your soul. Become a person of peace, even in the moments that are the most raging storms you could ever face. He didn't fear what was to come because Jesus was his anchor. And as you think about your relationship with fear and with life and following Jesus and all the stuff that's in front of you, I wish I could tell you that because of Jesus, you just don't have to experience the storms. Like, that's the moral of the story. He settled that storm back in the day, and now to follow Jesus is to have no storms. That ain't close to the truth. You're not going to be okay. There's going to be things that happen that are so beyond your control. I can't say that. But what I can say, and what Bill's life showed me, particularly just in the last few weeks even, is that as you follow Jesus and you let him determine the affection of your heart and the attention of your mind, when he becomes the centerpiece of your life, the center of gravity, and the target at the end of the road of who you want to become and become like, is that through every storm, you become a person of peace. And you become a person defined by love and not fear. And trust is our response back to a God who died to give us that. It's not just a good idea, it's the response. And so I want to invite you to stand today, and we're going to close with just a moment to sing and to respond and to reflect. And thank you guys for pressing out this morning on a snowy, icy day. I know you got to go get your Aldi pickup runs in before the snow comes. But I just want to invite you into these two questions this morning. The questions Jesus asked the guys on the boat. First question is, why are you afraid? Think about your life. Why are you afraid? And the second is, who do you trust? And my prayer today is that somehow, in the way that God kindly does it, regardless of the outcome, regardless of maybe a change in circumstance or not a change in circumstance, is that you become a non-anxious person of peace, trusting God in the midst of every storm. So Jesus, here we are this morning, human, vulnerable, struggling, excited, not present, physically here, whatever the story is. Worried about the snow, hoping for school days or hoping not for school days. Here we are, humans, real life people, afraid, broken, trying to trust, giving up, teetering, making decisions every day. And Jesus, we just want to say, express our gratitude for never giving up on us. Thank you that when we don't get it right, you don't leave. And so, whatever the situation is today, God, I pray that you'll meet people in the midst of it. May we be a safe harbor, a room full of boats, responding and loving and propping up one another, encouraging and inviting and confronting in loving ways, God. I pray that you'll help us today to respond to your invitation, to confront our limited imagination, and take us another day, another moment on this journey beyond our boundaries and working this journey from fear to love so that we can be healed and we can participate in what is on the other side for us and for all those who are yet to experience your love and your grace towards them. So Jesus, seal the moment as we respond, we pray, and we sing together.
Above every name, forged by mercy and grace, a love that will never fail, perfect in all of your ways. Winds and waves must obey when you say, be still, be still. So let the ocean come crashing down on me. Still I will trust you. Still I will trust you. So let the ocean come crashing down on me. Still I will trust you. Still I will trust you. Rest for the weary soul, a hope that will never let go. When the sail is broken and torn, you are here in the middle of my storm. Winds and waves must obey when you say, be still, be still. So let the ocean come crashing down on me. Still I will trust you. Still I will trust you. So let the ocean come crashing trust you. So let the ocean come crashing down on me. Still I will trust you. Still I will trust you. So let the ocean come crashing down on me. Still I will trust you. Still I will trust you.
This morning, and if it's your first time here, we would love to offer you a special gift out in the lobby at our Connect table, and that would also be an opportunity if you filled out a Connect card. We have a couple clear boxes out in the lobby with Connect cards that you can drop them down in there, and we hope to see you all back next week, and we hope you have a great week this week.